Well, I've just returned from Whiteacres. Been on the Preston Innovations Festival for a week. Preston Innovations Festival for me is always the best Whiteacres Festival of the year because it's a combination of all the other festivals to qualify for this festival, whereby the top 24 then qualify for a one-off match for £25,000, the Park Dean Masters. So it really is the who's who of commercial fishing, or just generally fishing in England, who, like to attend. So I always think that it's like the best match, the best sort of festival of the year, but it is also the hardest festival of the year. You know, you've heard it before when people draw in a group. Oh, I've got a hard group. So-and-so's got an easier group, which I always think is a little bit disrespectful to anglers. But at Preston Innovations Festival there is no easy groups, and there is no sort of one group that's particularly hard compared to the rest. I always know that when I look down the names, I think, well, that has got some of the country's best anglers in it, and that applies to every group. Our group was no different. The likes of Alan Scotthorne, Adam Wakelin, John Arthur, you know, they're just great anglers everywhere I look. Dandy Power, you know, we were just one group of many that were like that. So I really look forward to it, but I also know if I'm going to do any good in it, and this applies to everybody, you've got to draw the pegs that give you a chance of doing well. There's nobody can tell me that it's all about, you know, if you're good you catch anywhere. That doesn't happen. There's no such thing as a fair commercial fishery, or if there is, I've not really found one. You're always going to have better areas and worse areas. So to do any good, you've got to draw in the right areas. I've had one of those weeks. I've drawn in the right area of my section every day, which by that I mean it's given me a chance to win the section. I've had a tremendous week, 5 section wins to win the festival. Absolutely over the moon with that. You know, really pleased to stand up on that stage in front of all those anglers that I hugely respect. Was really pleased about it. I've won this festival in the past, and to win it with 5 wins was like always a sort of a lifetime ambition. So I'm really pleased to achieve it. Really am happy that I had the opportunity to do it. I've had the opportunity in the past to do it. Definitely drawn bad pegs in the past, but I know in the past I have had opportunities to win this festival. I've had a 3rd in this festival when on the last day I could have made a couple of different decisions and I probably would have won the festival. So you know, I know that you've got to be thinking and making those right decisions. A few examples of that throughout the week really. On the first day of the festival I've weighed 80 pound on tray waters, been on peg 19, nice peg, really nice peg, wind blowing up my end of the lake, you know, I'm on a peg with a chance to win the section. I've started on the short pole, pellets, I've made the right decision with bait. I think that is really important, to make the right decision with bait, because it's very difficult sometimes to know where to go. Meat, worms and casters, corn, pellets. And I think making the decision on bait and recognising what the right decision is it plays a massive part for me at Whiteacres. I'd heard several people comment that they caught a few fish on pellets the week before and when they'd had a practice. I'd also heard people mention meat. But for me, when I hear people talk about the baits, I think to myself, well, how have they fished it? How, you know, have lots of people caught on one particular bait? That rather than just one person, because I've heard it before when somebody said, oh, bagged up on meat in the last hour at 5 metres. Well, I think you'd have probably bagged up on pellets or corn or anything, and the fish have come on the feed and you've bagged up for an hour. That doesn't tell me they're specifically on a type of bait. It just tells me that meat worked in the last hour. So I like to listen and try and get a gauge of what baits are working. So when I made the decision to fish pellets at Tray Waters, I knew that there was a lot of fish being caught on pellets, so I was confident it was going to work. What I've done is I've plumbed up on a short pole, found that nice bit where it flattens off, which I think is really important, and I've fed with 4mm pellets. The pellets at Whiteacres, you have to use Whiteacres fishery pellets. They're quite a big pellet. The 4mm you know, we were all saying it's probably in between a standard 4 and a 6 mil, so it was quite a nice size to use for these sort of small carp F1s. And what I've done is I've prefer to fish an expander when I fish pellets, but what I've done is I've gone with an expander, but I've also had rigs for fishing a hard pellet should I get those small skimmers that can become a pest on expanders. I've thrown my bait, really important. I felt that as well. Little bit of noise meant that I could sort of drip feed the peg with a few pellets all the time. I fished light lines, light elastics, 011 power line, 11H elastic, and I just fished with a 16-434, which is quite a lightish hook in an expander, and took everything. I had an odd skimmer, F1s, I had a mirror about 4 pound, just had a lovely bag of fish for about an hour. Went dead, chased them out a bit, another section, ended up at about 13 metres, and I had a steady 3.5 hours where I caught on pellets, kept putting the fish in the net, and I really was happy that I was catching a few fish. I've come down the edge. I don't usually like to fish two edge lines. I like to pick my spot where I'm going to fish, plumb up carefully before the match, pick my spot where I'm going to fish. But this day, there's a lot of reeds and cover further out, and although I really fancied it, I did think that I'd have problems getting the fish out. So I opted on two lines, one a bit safer, closer in, where there probably wouldn't be quite as many fish, but everyone I hooked I was going to get out. And then one in the lines den, in the reeds, which proved to be a good decision because I did catch some fish by those reeds, but I was finding it ever so difficult to get them out. They must be taking a run up as they hit your bait, because you strike and they're in the reeds before you can even blink. And you know, on those margins lines, I wasn't on those light gear. I was on really strong gear to try and guide them out. Even when I tried the light gear to try and get them to swim out, you just couldn't do it. One of those where it was very difficult. So fishing that bit shorter, I came in last 40 minutes. I was really patient. 3 or 4 nice carp, sort of 4 pound, 5 pound, just boosted my weight up. So ended up weighing 80 pound. There was a 72 and a 73, which just shows maybe if I hadn't have made that decision to come in, missed out on a couple of those bigger fish towards the end, I wouldn't have won the section. So making the right decisions is key, and that was really evident there on that day. Another day when I thought I made the right decision was on following. It had been fishing hard, but not really badly. But within an hour of the match starting on it was the 4th day, where, you know, I really would have loved a 4 section wins. Bear in mind, you drop a result, it would have been a great result, and that's what I was fishing for. After an hour, I could tell it was fishing hard. It really was. Nothing was being caught. I'd caught 2 barbel, and I thought, well, it's a hard day today. It's not the traditional day on that match lake where you're going to catch big weights of fish. So what I've done, I've adjusted my setup slightly. I've fished a longer line for skimmers. I've changed onto a lighter rig with my meat, and I've caught odd hybrids, a skimmer, a couple of barbel, caught another few roach, big roach. Just chopped and changed those 2 lines really, and I've managed 2 small carp on a method feeder late on, and I do mean small, 2 for not even 6 pound, which on the match lake is just unheard of. They tend to be like 8 pound a piece, so I was a bit unlucky there, but that's the way it goes. No big carp at all. I saw an odd big carp be caught late on in the section, but you know, by that time I'd already built a lead, and you know, I even right at the end I've caught a couple of decent skimmers. You know, when I finished the match I thought, well, you know, I'm not going to win the section with my weight, but I've ducked and dived and I've probably salvaged points to guarantee my place in the final. But when we weighed in, I've weighed 36 pound. It's been a 34, a 33, a 30 pound. But I've won the section with 36 pound, and all those anglers who have caught those other weights have had, like say, 2 carp for 15 pound in the net. And if I'd have had something like that, it would have boosted me up to 50 pound, but I haven't caught those carp later on when I tried to catch them. I did try really hard to catch them, but ducking and diving, putting a few fish in the net has won me the section. So that was a real hard work performance, so I was really pleased with that. You know, a good day, definitely a good day. So you know, sometimes at Whiteacres, the day before at Belingi, I'd had 137 pound. I'd had 100 pound of carp down the edge in the last 2 hours. a completely different day from what I've had the next day. And when you look at the first day, so you can see the variety on offer. I'd already been to Porth, caught 200 roach for £19, managed 2 lake wins in the week with that. Porth weight, £19 a roach, next day £137 a carp. You really do need a bit of variety at Whiteacres to do any good. So I'd had a really good, 4 days. Going into the last day, several anglers could still beat me. Several anglers could still get 4 wins. Obviously having 4 wins in the bank was nice, but I drew on 31 on Twin Oaks. Been a good area. Been a good area all week. The section had been won from 27, 29, 31 and 35. 33 and 35. So it'd been won all through that little area there. So I was really happy to draw in that area because I felt confident that I'd be able to catch a few fish. Confidence lessened slightly when John Arthur was on the next peg. Lee Wright was on the peg on my left and Andy Power was further down the lake, although I didn't fancy it as much where Andy drew. So I knew I was going to have a really tough match, and it was exciting. I've made the decision to fish casters. Again, I've listened to what's been caught. I've listened to what people have caught on over the course of the week, and I've decided to fish with casters. I've fished casters down the edge and casters shallow for F1s. It's all F1s on that lake at the moment. Carp definitely didn't seem to be feeding as much, but the F1s are £2 to £3. I would say probably £3 nearer a piece. You get an odd one £4, an odd one £2, so they really are big fish, and they were my target. Slow start, caught a few down each edge. John got a bit of a lead. He's then gone out long, and he's fished casters shallow, and he's been catching. So when I've gone out on that shallow line, I'm probably 5 or 6 fish behind because it hasn't quite happened for me down the edges. And I've gone out on that shallow line, but I've caught, and I've caught well. I've probably caught John up over the course of the next 3-4 hours. Odd fish at a time. Very difficult to do when you're fishing against somebody as good as John, but I've caught him up. And going into the last hour, we were quite level, really. He's then nicked a few more fish. It was a great battle because I could see him. I could see what was going on out of the corner of my eye. And then just towards the end, I've had a last push. I've had 2 F1s when John hasn't had one. And incredibly, I've managed to win the section with 113.8 and John's had 111.15. So an unbelievably tight battle, but that gave me the 5 wins, which, like I mentioned at the start of the piece, I was absolutely over the moon to get. Really, really was happy to get 5 wins in that, against that level of competition. So absolutely fantastic. The Part D Masters final then, after winning the festival, a great week. I've been sharing with Frankie Giancelli. He'd had a nice week coming 9th, so we'd had a nice week between us, picked up a bit of money, which is always nice when you're on the festivals. Real good atmosphere between everyone on the festivals. Noticed that last couple of years. I really do think Whiteacres is in a bit of a resurgence. I think the fishing is very good. It is peggy. There is bad areas, but the fishing is good. So, I really do think that they are good festivals still, and as long as they keep on top of it, keep the place maintained, I think it'll be good for a long time to come. Part D Masters, I thought was going to be a non-event. I drew 14 on Jenny's. Never fancied it whatsoever. In fact, I'd have probably only given 13 Jamie Wild less of a chance of winning, which shows what I know, because Jamie Wild's gone on to win the match. He's fished a feeder against the far bank. He's had a lovely cut out on the far bank where he could cast his feeder inches from the bank. Fantastic display of casting. He put his feeder literally within 6 inches from start to finish. He should be very, very proud of himself. Never looked nervous or anything at any point. Fished a great match. Probably didn't quite realise that he was doing as well, because with an hour and 10 minutes to go, I'm probably beating him. I've got £25 in the net. Jamie's got just short of that. Nothing in it whatsoever. I'm fishing a long pole. I can't fish a feeder on my peg. There's too much overgrowth from the far bank. Bit disappointed with that, to be honest. Would have liked to have seen a bit of an area trimmed out like Jamie had, so I could have cast my feeder in, because if I could have cast my feeder in, I'd have definitely caught some fish there. When you're casting 6 foot off the bank, compared with somebody casting 6 inches, you just haven't got a chance. So I felt the best chance of winning the match was fishing pole in open water. Fished worms and casters, very confident on the method. And to be fair, the pegs to my right that are usually better on worms and casters, I have caught better than them. I've caught 25 pound, and I was just thinking, last hour, if I can catch 2 big carp, I'll probably win the match because it was fishing so hard. That's not happened for me. I've not had any more bites, but Jamie's had 3 carp in a 20-minute wonder spell for 20 pound to take him from what he had sort of low 20s to ending up 46 pound. Caught another small fish or 2 towards the end. A brilliant, brilliant performance. Patient on a day that fished hard. Hard luck to my mate Andy Geldart, who came second. Fished a very, very similar match on the method feeder. I've not seen the method feeder win on that lake in the Park D Masters final. I've seen it come close, but I really didn't fancy it to win. And it's proved that with it fishing hard, there was a few fish on that method feeder to keep fish coming throughout the day. I think because it fished hard, a lot of people could have won that final. I know I've spoke to several anglers who say if they'd done this, done that, fished for silvers a bit more, they could have caught 46 pounds. So I think it was a great example of a great final. I'd love it if every single big money final was like that, because it really could have been won by at least half of the field. Alright, there's at least half the pegs you haven't got a chance of catching that weight from still because they didn't fish on the day. But there is half the pegs where you really did have a chance of catching that weight. So if it was like that every year, I'd absolutely love it. And very, very interesting. And huge congratulations to Jamie. He's a lovely guy, Jamie Wild. So well done to him. Very, very interesting stuff. Really enjoyed my week. You know, can't wait for the spring when I get to go back. But got some interesting stuff coming up. I'm going to the Census Challenge final in France. Best teams across Europe have qualified for that. A brilliant competition, expertly well run. Cannot wait to get there to go and have a fish. Roach and skimmers. Team came 6th out of 64 last year. Love to improve on that. I'd absolutely love to win that event. We've got some good anglers going, so we might have a chance. So give you a blog about that when I get back. Until then, see you later.